Hello and welcome. I'm your host Zulfi Sheikh, joined by Kyle Ramnarine, and we are two of the news contributors on the Raptors Republic network. Here to introduce you to a new show called Run It Back, a weekly recap show where we go over this past week's of Raptors action. People get busy. Sometimes they miss one or two games or everything that happened, but they still want to keep up without having to sift through box scores, reaction videos, or articles for every single game. So we decided we're going to keep it nice and simple and streamline things for you all into one video. So whatever happened, how it happened, and why it happened, we got you covered. So without further ado, Kyle, let's run it back. All right, so let's start things off with a schedule recap of what happened in the games this past week. So the Raptors stayed put at Scotiabank Arena, playing 3 home games where they took on the Wizards, the Bucks, and the Celtics in what was an in-season tournament matchup. They went 1-2 over that span. And some key context, OG Anunoby was out all week with a finger laceration, and Gary Trent Jr. only played in the Boston game as he was dealing with plantar fasciitis. So let's start with the Wizards game. They looked lost in the first half of that 111 to 107 win, but they ended up pulling out a miracle 23-point comeback after halftime, 4th largest in franchise history. And who do they have to thank for that? Pascal Siakam. He finished the game with 39 points, 11 rebounds, and 7 assists. 22 of those points came in the third quarter, along with him eventually hitting the game-winning basket in the final moments. But they also have the Wizards to thank, who scored 1 point in the final 7 minutes. Man, that team is just not very good. But let's move on to the Bucks game. The Raptors did beat the Bucks at home just over 2 weeks ago, and fans were hoping for more of the same. Fortunately, Toronto had no answer for the big duo for Milwaukee, Damian Lillard and Malik Beasley. Yeah, that's right. No Giannis in this game, but no problem for the Bucks. Lillard finished with 37 points, 4 rebounds, and 13 assists as he was carving up Toronto repeatedly, getting to the rim at will, as they kept putting Jakob Poeltl in pick and roll, just taking advantage of the big Austrian, who was quite honestly on an island out there. And Beasley was also a man possessed, as he dropped 30 points, knocking down 8 of his 11 three-point attempts. Talk about efficiency. The Raptors could use somebody like that, that's for sure. Now, for the Raptors in that game, Scottie was the only one who seemed to care as they were getting blown out, playing bully ball as much as he could. He finished with 29 points, 9 rebounds, and 7 assists in the loss. Now for the Celtics game. It was the Raptors' first in-season tournament contest, the last team to play a game in the group stages. What took so long? Either way, the gold jerseys got mixed reviews, but the courts were a resounding thumbs up. Seems like just about every fan was into it, but players not so much, so a couple of them were complaining after about slipping. On to the actual basketball of it all. After getting waxed by the C's less than a week prior, it was good to see this one be a lot more competitive. A big part of that was the strong play of Siakam. Ford was cooking, making all-world defender Jrue Holiday look like baby food, quite honestly. But unfortunately, he got hit with some ticky-tack fouls early and had to sit the entire second quarter with those 3 fouls. A quarter where the Raptors got outscored by 22 points. Now, after the break, Siakam came back and they looked far steadier with him in the lineup as they mounted what was a comeback, even winning the third quarter by 32 to 19. It was back and forth the rest of the way, but some questionable decisions down the stretch really did cost the Raptors. In the final minute and 30, the Raptors had 5 offensive possessions, and Pascal Siakam got 0 shot attempts in any of those. Instead, Dennis Schroeder, who finished with 23 points to be fair, went for a floater when the game was tied at 103. And then the Celtics took the rebound, went down the other way, and eventually Derek White hit the game-winning corner 3. And on a play where Gary Trent Jr. quite honestly just got lost trying to double Jrue Holiday and was stuck in no man's land. Celtics had 8 players playing that game, and 7 of them hit double figures. Brown had 23, and Porzingis had a 14-point, 12 rebound double-double. Meanwhile, Siakam did it all for Toronto as he finished with 23, 6, and 5. So that recaps your schedule for the week. So let's take a look at your stat leaders. Not much has changed after another week of hoops for your Raptors. Barnes continues to do it all for Toronto, leading the team in points and rebounds. Dennis Schroeder is averaging 7.3 assists. It's gone down a little bit, but still up there. He still keeps in the top 10 in the NBA right now, so that would be good to keep an eye on. And after a slow start, Pascal Siakam has really seen an uptick in his offensive output. He's had 2 30-point games in the last 2 weeks. And over these last 3 games, he's averaged just over 24 points a night, well above his current average of 19. It'll be interesting to see when he hits over 20 points a game. I think it's just a matter of when and not if at this point based on how he's been playing. All right, now that we've seen the numbers, we've seen the schedule, and we've gotten a time to digest it all, I want to know, Kyle, what are some of your takeaways from this week and what you think we should take from the schedule so far?
Okay, so right off the bat, in the Celtics game, the beginning of the Bucks game, ending of the Bucks game, Pascal's lack of touches. I know you touched on this in the recap, but in the Celtics game, there was possessions where he just wasn't getting the ball. The beginning of the Bucks game, I think they went about 8 possessions. He didn't get a touch in the post. They didn't look like they're running plays for him. In the ending of the Bucks game, especially when they're trying to come back, I noticed Pascal was sitting. So I don't know what Darko's plan with Pascal is. It seems like, again, Pascal did pick it up this week, so it seems like he's getting his feet under him. But it looks like he's kind of struggling with Darko's system. I don't know if Darko really had a plan for him coming into the season, especially like, why is he sitting in clutch game situations? You know, where is he against the Bucks? Where is he against the Celtics? Why are we running plays for him? Those are just some weird decisions to me personally. I feel like, especially when he's cooking, he's got things going, you shouldn't be sitting him against the Bucks when they're trying to mount a comeback. Especially like, we need our best defenders, we need one of our best players on the court. It was just weird to me. Like, he eventually did come in, but there's a point where I was asking myself, where's Siakam? Why is he not in the game right now? And then going on to the next thing, how exactly can we make the shooting better? This is probably something that's going to plague the team for the entire season. I don't know what does this require? Do we need to make some roster tweaks? Do we have to move a couple of the key pieces? I know a couple of people in the Raptors Republic comments, they want to move some pieces for maybe Buddy Hield. I don't know what a trade would look like that for. Do we want to ship off guys like Gary Trent? Do we want to ship off guys like Otto Porter? Do we even have enough to get someone like Buddy Hield? I don't, without giving up our main 3 of Scotty, OG, and Pascal. I don't think the team would give up for someone like Buddy Hield. I don't know, but for the shooters we do have, like Gary Trent, Grady Dick shot 40.3% in college. Okay, so him struggling right now, I know he might get his feet under him going forward, but maybe we do have to send him to the 905. Again, to kind of get used to the NBA play and get used to how far it is to shoot. Just because right now he'll have his on games, but then for the next 4-ish games, he won't hit a 3. He'll go the whole game without scoring. So right now we got to think, who is our best shooters? We need them out there. Again, OG, and it's funny to say, Scotty is one of the team's best shooters. I think it was against the Bucks, he hit 3 for 3. Next, defense. So if anything, OG, that man has earned his full contract money, because we've just seen what the team looks like without him. We saw what Dame was doing to the team, just straight torching us without this man. And I don't know, like, where do you go from here when it comes to who would you want to keep going forward in the future? Like, when it comes to Siakam or OG, because both of these guys are on their contract years. And I just realized too, between Siakam and Scotty, there's a 7-year age gap. Siakam is about to turn 30, I'm pretty sure. So he's not getting any younger. So we have to figure out a direction with this team. Do we want to trade Siakam going forward? I know he's playing well. I know he's one of the best. He's the team's best players. But in order to build for the future, we got to take into his age and how long we can keep this core together. And that's something you got to consider, especially if he's playing this good. He's raising his trade value. So that's something the team has to consider. With the defense as well too, I feel like if you were to trade Siakam, you can get good defensive pieces that we don't just strictly rely on OG or Scotty. And then going back to lack of effort, I know, again, Zulfi talked about this as well, but when I was watching that Bucks game, it looked like Otto Porter's controller just died out there, because he was playing, and he wasn't moving on defense. He wasn't moving on offense. He literally stood there in the corner one time with his hands on his hips. When he went back to defense, just again standing there. So on offense, probably he wasn't involved in the play, but even on defense, I think Precious got the chase down block on Dame, and Otto was just standing there looking frozen, and Dame got the rebound. So I don't know, what are we doing? There's some games where we come out with a lack of energy, just looking like we don't want to win. Again, with the Bucks game, where Scotty looked like the only one where he was trying to win. So that's something we really need. We need more like hustle plays. We need more energy into the team. Like, we want to look like we want to win these games. And I think it goes back to the leadership. Either the locker room leadership of the players of Scotty or Siakam or Darko. Like, you have to rally this team together, especially when they're down big. We've seen them do it before. We've seen them come back big before, but we can't just let that energy go away. And then again, weird decisions in the Bucks games. When it came to offense, we weren't hunting Damian Lillard like we did in the previous Buck game, and that's how we won. I think it was Dennis Schroeder was putting him constantly in the pick and roll. Siakam was putting him constantly in the pick and roll. And yeah, we could say, yeah, the Bucks were hiding Damian Lillard on defense. But again, if you roll out a lineup of, let's say, Dennis, Scotty, Siakam, Boucher, and Jakob, all of these people, no matter who they put Dame on, can actively hunt Damian on defense and put him in a pick and roll or put him in the post. So there is no really way they could truly hide him, especially if you're involving him in the pick and roll. It's just the lineups you were running, and for some reason we weren't doing the pick and roll. We weren't actively hunting their worst defender on defense, which is I think was killing us in the long run. Scotty started doing it for a little bit, started pounding the paint, going at Damian Lillard, and that's how he was scoring. But again, it was weird decisions. And something I noticed about Dennis this week too. So this week, Dennis did have a bounce back performance against like his the most recent Raptors game. But before that, especially with the Bucks game, the Wizards game, it noticed to me, at least in the Bucks game, that he was kind of forcing shots. You know, what I liked about Dennis the first 2 weeks, he let the game kind of come to him. He was running the pick and roll with Jakub. That was his bread and butter. Finding the open man, taking the open shots, and it just seemed very natural. It just seemed like he wasn't playing any sort of hero ball. He wasn't jacking up any shots. But with the Bucks game, it looked kind of forced to me, and that's where his game started going sour, I believe. But again, when he lets the game come to him, the team does flow way better. And in the end, you could see this team has the foundations of something special. It's just the spacing and the shooting is what's killing us right now. Our defense will get better when OG gets back from his injury, but we need to see where this team is going. Like again, it's so early in the season. They could gel out and they could play great at the end of the season. So we don't know. But right now, we need to fix the shooting issues. It is killing us. We're shooting 27% from three in certain games. It is horrible. I don't know, Zulfi, what's your take on these games this week?
Look, I think you did a really good job of basically encapsulating what every Raptors fan is thinking. There was like 17 different things you mentioned there that were concerning, are also kind of positive in there as well. But that's just what the Raptors have been. I want to be like every other Raptors fan, at least in the Raptors Republic comments, who have all these different takes about like, what's the roster looking like? Where's the shooting? Pascal versus Scotty. There's so many things, but I think the best way to contextualize it is it has only been around like 10 to 12 games so far. So for me, it's been really hard to want to react to these things because I have the same feelings. This roster scares me. The spacing, the construction of it, the impending free agency, all of it is worrisome. But since it's so early, I think the biggest takeaway for me, and you kind of mentioned it throughout it, is just getting OG back and healthy. We've seen how different this team is when he's out there. Granted, they weren't like winning a ton of games with him out there, but you just see how much of a difference he makes. The team's net rating with him on is around a 7.8, and when he's off, it's into negative 10. Like, it's a huge drop off. The offense scores more, they turn the ball over less, and more importantly, he spaces so much better when he's out there on the floor. We already know the spacing issues with Siakam, Barnes, and Jakob Poeltl. It just doesn't work because they all want to get inside the paint. But then when you have guys around them who aren't reliable threats to shoot, why does anybody even need to do anything other than camp the paint? You saw it in the Celtics game where every Celtics player almost had a foot inside the paint because they knew they didn't have to worry about any of these shooters. OG Anunoby is literally the most reliable shooter on this Raptors team, especially in the starting lineup. So having him out there will at least alleviate some of those issues, and his defensive impact goes without saying. He's somebody who's going to be out there in these key situations, in these key moments, and you saw it in these past games. Honestly, if OG Anunoby's in there, I think they have a much better shot against the Bucks, especially with the stuff that Malik Beasley or Damian Lillard were doing. Be able to guard one of them, you'd think. And then the Celtics game, a 3-point game, if OG Anunoby is out there at the end, going back to that play where Gary Trent Jr. was left on an island. Does that happen? Probably not. I don't think he makes a defensive lapse like that, or even just the rotations that happen. Darko said it after the game. Pressure should have came up higher more, so Siakam didn't have to help, so that corner three wouldn't have been available. I think OG Anunoby's smart enough to not make those mistakes in those moments, so those games go very differently. So I want to try to be more concerned based on the roster construction and what's going on, but I think the simple way to put it is just get OG healthy and continue to work on the little things little by little. Before that injury happened, the Raptors were starting to progress. You saw Darko making proper adjustments, getting better, and I think that last week when they beat the Spurs and the Mavericks, people thought Darko was starting to figure it out, and honestly, he was. Then you get these injuries to Gary and OG, and all of a sudden, games aren't going the same. Darko's decision-making is coming into question. He's a rookie head coach. It's going to happen, but I think a lot of it has to do is when you don't have your best guys out there, it's harder for a rookie coach to make the adjustments and kind of make up for a lack of talent. So I think that's what I'm going to take away from this week. I'm not going to try to overreact. Biggest thing is let's get OG back, let's get him healthy, and continue to do the little things and grow, and I think that's going to happen gradually if this team can stay healthy with him out there.
Yeah, I'm not going to jump to the whole let's trade Siakam or let's make big roster movements yet because, again, we still don't know still don't know what's going on. We don't know if Grady is going to finally find his footing next week, or Gary Trent's going to go on a hot streak next week. So we can jump down to everyone's throats and say, you need to play better, you need to play better. But again, people have their slumps, people come back. It's naturally what happens. One thing I didn't mention too was Siakam. I know for some games, what kind of bothers me is that he'll settle for jumpers in certain games instead of taking it to the paint. And if he stops, the minute he stops doing that is the minute like he's gonna get back up to playing the way we know he can play. Because there are times where I'll see him, he'll have an open lane for the drive, but he'll just be like, nah, I want to take this pull up mid range instead, or I want to take this pull up three instead. So that's the only thing I kind of miss mentioning. But yeah, again, it's still early in the season. There are so many things we don't know what's going to happen. We don't know if they're going to make any moves at the deadline. So I don't want to say trade this person, trade this person. It's just, again, it's a figuring out process, and we'll see where we go from here.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to put it. It's all going to be trying to get the pieces to work together. I think Darko is also learning that he came in with this philosophy of this 0.5 offense. We're going to move the ball a lot. We're going to get better looks. But then when you don't have the requisite talent to make that happen, you don't have the proper ball handlers, you don't have the spacing shooters in your point guard and your other wings out there, how is that really going to work? And then eventually you kind of just have to revert back to what's worked for you in the past, which is Siakam and Scotty Barnes posting up. But then he's learned in that too, is that doesn't necessarily take away from this 0.5 fast-moving offensive style. Siakam said it after the other game too against the Celtics. When I have the ball in the post, we get good results. And if I'm not scoring, I'm at least reading and making the right pass when it needs to happen. So at the end of the day, the principles and philosophy of the 0.5 do stick around. It's just figuring out how much like given push do you have between what works in terms of Pascal and Scotty posting up and then trying to move the ball around when you don't have these kind of shooters. So I'll be curious to see how Darko figures it out. Again, he has a lot to do. But I think that pretty much wraps up this past week's worth of action. I think the next part is going to be a bit more fun to talk about. Is going to be your power rankings of this roster so far, Kyle. So let's hear it.
Okay, so this is where we take the Raptors from each week, the lineup, and we rank it top to bottom. Granted, at the bottom, you're going to see DNPs, you're going to see inactives, anyone with an injury, but we'll make it work week to week. So to give y'all an idea, this changes, again, I cannot stress this enough, weekly. So for our first list, we're not basing it off the last 3 weeks, we're basing it off the last week, and it's going to change every week. It's fluid. So don't get mad if you don't see Scotty Barnes at number 1 because of this week, because he's been playing good the last 3 weeks. It's about the last week, and that's what we're basing it off. I'm just going to stress that enough. Again, so just getting straight to the list. So if he's going to give his takes on the list, I'm going to give it out right now. So number 1, Pascal Siakam. Number 2, Scotty Barnes. 3, Dennis Schroeder. 4, Jakob Poeltl. 5, Precious Achiuwa. 6, Gary Trent Jr. 7, OG Anunoby. 8, Malachi Flynn. 9, Chris Boucher. 10, Jordan McDaniels. 11, Grady Dick. 12, Otto Porter Jr. 13, Garrett Temple. 14, Christian Coloco. And 15, Thad Young. So, Zulfi, what do you think? Did I get it right? Did I miss? What are your thoughts?
I think first of all, I find it hilarious how much you have to stress this is a week by week.
Bro, so we don't get torched. Just so we don't get torched in the comments saying, "Oh, but Scotty did this. Scotty had this incredible performance against San Antonio." But like,
hey man, I respect it. You have to make sure you cover your bases so fans don't come at you. I think the list makes a lot of sense for the most part. I think the top 3 are bang on. I would say for this past week, Pascal did so much of the carrying. Scotty had some really good games too, especially against the Bucks. He was probably the only one in that game to be a positive, in my opinion. So I think it makes sense to have him in second place. Dennis Schroeder, like you said, against the Celtics looked really good. But the first couple of games kind of probably made him drop down a bit, especially that game against the Bucks. But again, no one really looked all that good in that game. Where I kind of want to know where your thoughts went were OG Anunoby and Malachi Flynn. I personally would have had them at 4-5 because I know OG hasn't played, but he's just been so good when he's like, they miss him so much. The fact that he has that much of an impact, I think even if he's not playing, you just know he's a top 3, top 4 guy on this roster. I'll get to Malachi in a second, but give me your reasoning for OG and why he's like in the middle of the pack here.
Honestly, like OG, like I was really strongly debating putting him top 4. I was putting him at the bottom of the list again because he just didn't play at all. You know, again, we're saying week by week, so people are like, yeah, OG didn't play this week, and y'all are stressing weekly. So, but the thing is, like you said, how important he is to this team. So I think you can't put him in the top because he didn't play. You can't put him to the bottom because he wasn't so important. So again, I thought the middle was a good place to put him because we saw how much this team needed him when he's not here, how much we were getting torched, the lapses in defensive rotations. It just looked like sometimes we didn't have enough energy out there. We weren't hustling for the loose balls. So again, we see what this team needs with when OG is out. So again, I think the middle place is a good place to put him because again, we know what he's capable of, and we saw how we needed him when he was out.
Yeah, that's fair. I think you're right in the sense that like it's hard to rank him in the top when he just hasn't played.
Yeah.
But then you also know he has an impact out there that's so important that you just constantly see when he's not out there. So you can't put him at the bottom either. So I think it's fair if you want to have him in the middle. Malachi Phil is another name I wanted to get to, and I know he's such a polarizing player, especially with the Raptors Republic community. Some love him, some hate him, some think there's nothing to even think about him when it comes to him being a player. But this past week, I think he has looked very impressive. I know you're going to get to your reasoning why and his confidence. A play that really stuck out to me was in the Celtics game, where he had a sequence where he came down, drilled a three with confidence, and then went back on the other end of the floor. And then he stood up against Kristaps Porzingis, who tried to take a hook shot over him, rightfully so, because he has so much height. And Malachi just stood there confidently, and he got the miss out of Kristaps. And I just saw a guy who was constantly working to get better. Yes, his plus minus numbers aren't great, but he's usually out there with really not so great players all the time, and they go on not so great runs. So not all of that is his fault. So I think Malachi deserved to be a bit higher up. Precious and Gary coming back from injuries, which is why I probably would have bumped him up. But I'm curious to know what you think, why Malachi was in the middle there.
For me too, I can see what you're saying too about again putting him higher. But like, if this was like the first week or two, he probably would have been at the bottom of this list the way he was playing. But for me too, I feel like he just had to work his way up. And when it had someone like Precious Achiuwa, like he came back from his injury and he immediately, I saw the impact he was making on the team, especially in that Bucks game that we saw. Jakob was missing open layups. He wasn't playing his best. He was giving up on defense. Like he wasn't hustling for the rebounds. Precious immediately came in the game, hit a three, got the blocks, was rotating. It's like he came out with a fire lit under him, And for Malachi, for me, I feel like it's been a slow build for him. He's been improving. And this week especially, like he did make some questionable decisions, but he did impress me and he hit a few shots. He passed to the open man. Again, like you said, he's playing great defense. So I feel like right there, for me at least, was a good place to put him. Don't be surprised if I do move him up in later weeks, but for me, it's just a slow build, especially this week. He really did impress me, and it looks like he's really coming into his own.
Yeah, that's fair. I think the best thing you put it up was that like it's a slow build for him, right? And you're right. In the first 2 weeks, he'd definitely be near the bottom of the list. So the fact that he's already up to 8 is impressive. And I only think he's gonna go up higher unless this team does make moves for another point guard. But in the meantime, they need him. His responsibility is there, and he just has to keep taking it and getting better. The next names I want to ask are Grady Dick and Jalen McDaniels. I think that's an interesting one.
Yeah.
Those two players, they have a similar role in terms of how many minutes they're going to get, what they're going to be asked to do. And I could see it going either way. So I'm curious why you went with McDaniels over Dick.
Jalen McD, like I know he's probably again next to Malachi, he's one of the most polarizing figures in the Raptors Republic comments. Everyone is saying, I saw when I was writing my quick reaction on that Bucks game, I saw people, he hit a three and everyone's like, we love you McD, we love you, and then he missed it and everyone's like, trade this guy.
Well, it's probably his only three he's hit so far. I don't know how many he has, so I can see why people overreacted. It took so long to get one
for him to hit a three. But for me, it's like I strictly saw how he's been able to score this past week. I see his size and his length. He was out there rotating on defense. He wasn't making boneheaded decisions. I feel like if they find a way to incorporate him better into the bench lineup, he can really contribute to this team. I know we're giving him flack right now, but then when we go to Grady Dick, they gave him the start, and then out there, it looked like, no pun intended, he looked like a deer in headlights. He wasn't rotating. He was getting turnovers. He was, for some reason, you're going up against Dame. This is easily a mismatch you can hunt because Grady is 6'8", I believe. He has the offensive to do it, but Damian Lillard's forcing a pickup. Damian Lillard's clamping you down. What are we doing here? Damian Lillard is not a good defensive point guard, and we should be hunting that mismatch. He just wasn't taking threes. He was passing open threes. For me, I just think his confidence needs to be there, and you can't be shooting as bad as he did when especially he shot 40.3% in college. I know what he's capable of. So maybe I might be a bit too harsh, but I feel like he really needs to find his footing to be higher on this list.
Yeah, that's fair. I think Grady Dick is a hard one to evaluate because at least early on, he was doing so many of the little things
Mhm.
that were going so well. He was finding open space, he was cutting, he was being active defensively, trying to, even though he wasn't a great defender in those games either, he was getting hunted a little. He was trying and being engaged. As games have gone on, you can see his confidence is wavering a little
Mhm.
bit because the shot isn't falling. And it's hard. It's hard when you know
Mhm.
you came in, you're drafted to be a shooter, and the shot just isn't falling for you, not for a lack of good looks. So I don't know what the solution is with Grady, and I know people have debated about should he go down to the G League, should he just stay up and get the reps. I've seen some people say that like since he does all of these little things like cutting and moving well, those are the things you usually work on in the G League. The NBA speed reps would be better, but I also think there's some value to the idea that like for a shooter, a lot of it is just like you kind of have to keep shooting. You have to get those reps in. You have to get the footing down. You have to do all those things. And you'll probably just get more of those in the
Mhm.
G League playing 20, 30 minutes versus in the NBA where his stints are like 6 to 12. So I don't know. I think there's a camp to both sides. There's reasons where should he stay up? Should he go to the G League? I think,
Mhm.
especially when the Raptors and 905 play on the same, like at home at the same time, he definitely should go to the G League then. But I'm
Mhm.
curious what you think, Kyle. Do you think he should be sent down to the G League to at least now to get those reps in? Or is it one of those things where you just take it like day by day?
Honestly, I think he should, and this is not a diss to Grady Dick at all. Like the people think getting sent down to the G League is like you're getting sent to prison or something. I don't think it is. Honestly, we've seen players on the Raptors go to the G League and get better. Get their confidence up, have amazing games, and then come back and actually contribute to the team. So I think if he goes there, honestly, he can find his shot. He can get used to how how the defenses work, how the NBA really works. Again, it's not the NBA, but he will get used to it. He will get his confidence up when you start hitting those shots, especially for a shooter. The main thing is confidence. Again, it's like that. What is it? The Dion Waiters quote. I'd rather you go 0 for 30 than 0 for 10, because if you went 0 for 10, it means you stop shooting. Because I need this guy to have confidence when he's shooting the ball. I saw it early on in the season, and he wasn't passing open shots. He'd hit the pump fake, step to the side, shoot the three. But now it looks like he's second guessing himself. You send him to the 905, he gets more of a green light there. You don't really have to worry about the consequences too much. Gets confidence, gets the shot, comes back, contributes to the team. So I really think the 905 will help him in the long run, to be honest.
Yeah, I think it's a good point. Like again, the debate comes down to is NBA speed more important for his development, or is it just the volume of reps? And I think that's the question. I feel like I err on the side with you, Kyle, where just the sheer volume and minutes he'd get in the 905
Mhm.
would be beneficial. It's just it is early, so we'll see how it goes on. But if it continues like this, I think it just might be a tough decision they need to make to just get him down there, feeling good again, getting a lot more opportunity to showcase his skills and doing it with a team that, quite frankly, needs him right now. The
Yeah.
Raptors 905 are 0-5, and I know I'm going on a tangent, but they could use any help they can get. They have not been healthy. The two-way guys have been out.
Mhm.
So, like, hey, get Grady Dick in there once they're back at home to at least help that team out and then also help Grady Dick's development a little bit.
Exactly. And like when he goes there, it like because right now I'm afraid that they keep him in the NBA. He loses his confidence and people are calling him a bust. Why do we draft him? And then that would just wane on him. And then next thing you know, like it just goes down to for knock on wood. I don't want this to happen for him. I'm really big on Grady. I loved his shooting in college. I love like he seems like he has everything with him, especially I think it was in the San Antonio game where he made that amazing pass to the corner, that bullet pass. Like he can do it. I know he can do it and be a contributor to this team, but he just needs that confidence. And again, putting him on this big stage, again, starting minutes too, like the fans are going to come down on you hard. But when you go into the 905, you're not getting as much hate. You get more of a green light. You're getting more minutes. You're getting the flow better. So in the long run, I think they should do it.
Yeah, fair enough. Well, that's all I have to say on this power rankings list. Let us know in the comments below what you think. Did Kyle nail it? Does he deserve to get cooked and roasted? He probably will either way.
Yeah.
That's just the comments. And nowadays, but let us know what you guys think. And now we have This Week in Raptors History, probably my favorite segment of the whole show, where we thought it'd be fun to reminisce, look back at some memorable moments, some key performances. So we went back in time so you didn't have to, and found something fun that happened in this very week of a previous year. So with that being said, let's take a look at our first This Week in Raptors History. And we're starting off with something I think is really fun. Since this team is taking on the Pistons tonight, we thought it'd be fun to look at the first Pistons game from last season. And boy, was there a key performance none of us probably would have expected. They had Delano Banton, Rexdale's own, breaking the Raptors' curse against the Pistons on November 14th, 2022. Delano put up 27 points, a career high, to go with 4 rebounds, 4 assists, 3 steals, and 2 blocks. My God, what a stat line. In a 115 to 111 win. It broke a 6-game losing streak to Dwayne Casey's Pound the Rock Pistons, and he did all of that in just 25 minutes of action. More impressive was the fact that Delano was doing all this without Gary Trent Jr., without Fred VanVleet, Precious Achiuwa, and Pascal Siakam. So shout out to Rexdale's own. He's now with the Celtics doing his thing. So the Raptors won't have a Delano Banton tonight to score 27 points and cook against the Pistons. So the question is going to be, who's going to step up? I'm not really sure. Hopefully OG's probable to be back in this game, so fingers crossed he might be able to do something. But that was Delano Banton, and that was also this week in Raptors history. Hope you guys enjoyed. Let us know if you remember that game.
So up next, we got our betting ahead segment. This is probably one of my favorite segments we're going to be doing because I'm going to out here trying to make some money, trying to get these dubs. So this is, again, we look at the schedule for this week coming ahead, who the Raptors play, what the numbers are going to say, how we're feeling, who's going to be in for a Monsters game. So let's take a look at the schedule. I'll give you guys the money lines, and I'll give you something really interesting that I want to try doing. So first, I want to present everyone with the Raptors 10-week 10K challenge. So right now, a lot of people are doing this challenge on Twitter, but just more of NBA in general. But I want to focus on the Raptors. So you guys can let me know if you want it game by game or if you want it week by week. But for this, at this moment, I'm probably just going to do it week by week. So the 10-week 10K challenge. Basically, let me run it down for y'all. What is this challenge? How do you make money? So at first, we just start with $10. That's the only thing you're putting in. $10, nothing more, nothing less. So every week, you're going to try and get the odds to plus 100. I'm going to help you guys. I'm going to give you guys the bets that will get you to plus 100 odds. So you start off with $10, and with these plus 100 odds, if you win, you're going to win $10. So now you're going to have $20 in total. The next week, we're going to bet that $20. We're going to win $20, have $40. Next week, you spend the 40, you bet the 40, win 40. Again, you're doubling your money each time. So by the time you get to the 10th week, you have a chance to win $10,000, or if you want to cash out early, feel free to do so. So this week, the Raptors play the Pistons, they play the Magic, they play the Pacers, they play the Bulls. Most of these teams don't seem like too much trouble for the Raptors, but which would be the best game to bet on? So for the best game, I think out of these four, I think it has to be the Pacers. I think with a team like the Pistons or the Bulls, there could be a chance for a blowout on either side. So again, you don't want to be betting on like Scotty 20 points and the team is either blowing out the other team or getting blown out and they're sitting their starters. So for I think the Pacers would be your best bet because I think it would be competitive. So it shouldn't really be too much of a blowout and our stars can get to work. So for something this simple to get 100 odds, and I'm going to use FanDuel for this one. This is where I'm going to be doing most of my bets, most of my odds. So I would do Scotty Barnes for 20 plus points and Siakam for 15 plus. It's a very simple parlay, only 2 legs. You don't have to go crazy as long as you get those odds. And I just did it up on FanDuel. It came out to about plus 107. As long as you get over 100, you should be fine because you're doubling what you bet. Other legs I would do, if again somehow FanDuel lowers the odds and you're not getting plus 100, I would do Scotty 6 rebounds. He is always good for 6 rebounds. Again, like we saw, he's hustling in these games. He's grabbing the offensive boards, grabbing the defensive boards. You could do Siakam 6 rebounds. I'm not feeling as confident as the Scotty 6 rebounds, but again, Siakam is one of the bigger players on this team. So if you're not feeling the Scotty, go with Siakam 6 rebounds. And I would do Scotty over 1.5 threes. So as long as he hits 2 threes, you're good, which he is good for most of the times in these games. I haven't seen him really have too much of a bad shooting night on most of these games, but that's how you do it if you want to start week 1 of the 10K challenge. I'm going with Scotty 20 plus, and I'm going with Siakam 15 plus, just taking those other legs, and we should be good. But hopefully we get the W this week. But if you guys want to stick to the classics and you guys just want money lines, you just want to vote on who you think is winning, who's losing. Here, I'll help you out with that. So I do like the Raptors' chances up against the Magic and the Bulls. I feel like if you were going to bet on any money line for the Raptors, it's going to be those 2 games. I'm not too confident on the Pistons and the Pacers, especially with guys like Halliburton and Cade Cunningham, and we don't have OG to help slow these guys down. With, again, the Bulls, we've seen my like confidence has been increasing the Raptors, especially against the Celtics. So I can fairly say that they can take on these 2 teams and get the W. But I would just say stay away from the Pistons money line, stay away from the Pacers money line, just in case, because I don't know if those guys are going to go off. I don't know if it's going to be a blowout. But that's it for this week for betting ahead. Let me know if you guys win in the comments. Let me know again if you want me to do the challenge game by game or if you want me to do weekly. But that's all we have for this week.
All right. Thank you, Kyle, for those best bets and outlining this new week's schedule. But that does it for us. We want to thank you for anyone who followed along. Hope you're caught up with all things in Raptors land. And if you'd like more of this content and anything else Raptors Republic has to offer, check out the description or go to raptorsrepublic.com. Better yet, sign up for a subscription. Just $6 a month gets you exclusive work from great people like Samson and Lewis. Shout out to my pick and roll nerds. You guys will love their stuff. But at the end of the day, please like, share, subscribe. But even more importantly, please comment and let us know how we did. We know this wasn't perfect. We know we didn't bang everything and get everything down, out perfectly. But we just wanted to get out there, get our names out in the public, and also share some good content for you guys. So let us know. Did you like it? Did you hate it? Why'd you hate it? And then if you're going to roast us, please at least tell us why so we know, so we can get better. But that's it for me. I'm Zulfi Sheikh, and that's Kyle Ramnarine on the Raptors Republic Network. We'll see you back next week where we run it back.